Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation. The message reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, I am a woman and I am a witch. For me to become a witch, what happened to me was that my own grandmother was the one who taught me all about witchcraft. And when I went to stay with my grandmother, it was after at school I had faced so much bullying. The teachers, they used to bully me as well as the other students. What people in the village didn't understand about me was that I was not stupid. They thought that since I was not bright in school, this meant that I was just a stupid girl. But I was just a slow learner. But people in the village, they didn't have that knowledge. So people, they used to bully me a lot. They would call me a slow learner. Usually, what would happen whenever we would be in class, the teacher will ask me a question. Then I would fail to answer that question. The teacher will go as far as giving me some tips so that I can actually know the answer, like she would reveal the answer to me, but still I would be confused. Then people will start to laugh. The other classmates, my classmates, they will start to laugh at me. When the news reached my mother's ears that I was being bullied simply because I was not so bright in school, I was a slow learner, my mother then said that, my daughter, let me take you out of this community because the bullying that you are facing, it is just too much. That is how I ended up staying with my own grandmother. When I was staying with my grandmother, I started to have weird but magical dreams. And as a young girl, these magical dreams, they actually gave me a place whereby when I was dreaming, I would forget about everything that I was facing in the real world. In this magical land, I would find myself flying with the birds of the night like your owls, as well as riding hyenas. This became a perfect place for me to relax and to forget about everything that was happening to me. What I will do is that whenever I would go to bed, I would actually think of what I was going to dream about on that night, meeting my friends, the hyenas and the birds of the night. Then when the next morning would come and when I would find out that I didn't have such a magical dream, I would feel so sad throughout the night. I would only be happy after having another dream. My brother, it then happened that one day my grandmother, it was late in the afternoon, she then called me. She was sitting outside and she then said, my daughter, I want to give you this peanut. I want you to eat this peanut. So she had placed this peanut inside this other wooden plate she gave me so that I can eat. This peanut, it was green in color, and when I placed this peanut into my mouth, it had the most terrible taste. I wanted to vomit, but quickly my grandmother then made sure that I was not going to vomit. She actually closed my mouth so that I won't vomit anything. I then ate everything and I swallowed it. After I had swallowed this peanut, I felt that there was a burning, painful sensation that was in my stomach. Then my grandmother told me that she had given me this peanut so that by the time that she would be giving me meat, since she had confessed to me that she was a witch, she said that by the time that you will be eating human meat, the human meat is not going to affect the human meat that you will be eating is not going to affect your stomach. The peanut, it is there to help me to digest human meat that we usually eat. With time, my grandmother then told me that she had a snake. This snake, it is still there in this other particular mountain in that village where I grew up staying with my grandmother. She taught me how to call out this snake whenever she wanted to feed it. Even now, I know how to call out this snake whenever I want to see it. My grandmother later sold this snake to this other ritualist who wanted to use that snake. My grandmother told me how she had created that snake that lives in the mountain. She said that after her mother had passed away, she then took her spirit and transformed that spirit, and it became a snake. My grandmother told me that she had a lot of stuff and she had been helped by some of her club members to create things that they used when they were bewitching people. She then told me that she had chosen me and she wanted me to inherit all of her witchcraft stuff. Unfortunately, she said, I can't give you everything that I use to bewitch other people because I was helped by the club members. So these things, if I leave them to you, they are too powerful. They are going to affect you. After my grandmother had confessed this thing to me, she then took me one night to the graves where I was introduced to the rest of the clan members. On this other particular day, me and my grandmother, we then started walking around the village. We were just pretending as if we were just walking roundabout, but we were actually doing some introductions. I was being introduced to the witches. This was an initiation process. What we will do is that if there was a witch, we would enter into her compound. Then the witch will give me dried meat so that I can eat. On that day, I ate so much dried meat, I felt so full I could not eat anymore. But my grandmother told me that I had to force myself because this was part of the ceremony. That is how I became a witch, and I started living my life. Soon after, my grandmother had passed away without having problems with anyone. Regularly in our club, we have what we call in our language Chijana. So this means that when this jana comes to you, you have to sacrifice something to the club, no matter what, no excuses, no what. This is an oath that you take, that you are going to live by throughout your life. Well, when this thing came to me, then there was a funeral in the family. My auntie had passed away. We then went to attend her funeral. So there was a particular way that I wanted my auntie to be buried, and there was a particular way that I wanted people to handle the funeral, because I knew that there was a lot of stuff that was going on in the spiritual realm. All of my relatives, they didn't have any single idea. So what was happening in the spiritual realm was that way back in the past, my auntie, she had created unnecessary enemies. There were witches in that village that had waited patiently for her time to come, the time that she had been given by God to live on this earth. So when she passed away, they were getting ready for their dinner, for she was like their supper, their dinner. They wanted to take her flesh so that they can feed it to their creatures and demons that they use in their bewitching stuff. I didn't want to get involved with them since I didn't know anything about them. I was a witch, they were witches. They were going to do whatever they wanted to do with my auntie's body, and I was going to stay out of it. So there was a particular way that I wanted auntie to be buried because I knew what I was doing. But then there was this other brother of mine. So this brother of mine, he thinks that simply because he has a lot of money and his relative don't have that kind of money, so he has control over the family. We started fighting with the way that our auntie was supposed to be buried and how the program was supposed to be handled. And he told me that I was selfish and I was a witch. And I heard that he had been gossiping around, telling people that I acted as if I was a witch, the way that I was selfish. And one thing that I do not tolerate in this world is for someone to call me a witch. The question that I will ask you is, have you ever caught me red-handed bewitching anyone? If you say no, then you have no right to call me a witch. And my brother, he did that mistake that is going to cost him his life. When I heard that my brother had been calling me a witch, telling all of our relatives that I acted weird and very selfish, just like a witch, I then approached him and I confronted him and I said, why are you saying that I am a witch? Did you ever caught me red-handed bewitching anyone? He then said that whatever I said, if you had it, then just live with it. I got so angry and I returned back home, spoke with my club members about this issue, and I then laid his life on the altar. I said, fellow witches, this brother of mine, he is the one that I have chosen. Since it is my duty to honor this altar, to sacrifice something, to lay something upon this altar, I have chosen my own brother. So in the next coming year, in a certain month, that is when my brother is going to pass. That is when my brother is going to die. So what we did, my brother, is that me and my fellow club members who are witches, they then accompanied me on the day that I wanted to bewitch my brother, to insert a certain disease in his body, which is going to end his life. I cooked rice and I cooked some meat, but this meat that I cooked, I mixed it with some human meat. So usually, if one is not a witch, if you have never been given herbs to digest human flesh, if witches come to you and if they feed you this human flesh, then it is going to create a disease in your body that is not so easily curable. That is what I did to my brother. I cooked the rice and I went to his house accompanied by my fellow witches. Well, there is something that happens in the spiritual realm whereby one can be suspended in a place that is between the spiritual world and the physical world. So when you are suspended in that state, there is something that happens. If you are given something to eat, this thing can actually have negative impact on your life physically and spiritually. And I then suspended my brother in that state. He was in the spiritual. I then suspended my brother. He was neither in the spiritual world and he was not in the physical world. I woke him up and I told him that I had cooked him this nice meal. He then took that plate that had rice and meat, the meat that was mixed with charms that were made out of human flesh. He then started eating, and after he had ate, not wanting him to vomit this stuff, we then gave him a herbal drink that was full of charms. So as we are speaking right now, the food that I gave him, it was like a seed, and this seed is in his body. This seed, as soon as it is going to develop, it is going to become a disease that is intelligent enough such that when he goes to the doctors will actually treat him, and they will give him wrong medication. They will say that he is diabetic. They will treat him for him being diabetic, but at the end of the day, they will say that this is a wrong treatment that they have been giving him. This disease that we inserted, this seed that we inserted into his body, it will keep on changing its form until he dies. There is no more hope for him. He is slowly dying. The process is started already, and there is no cure for the disease that we inserted into his body, because it is a spiritual thing that we gave him that is going to be affecting him physically. This I have to do because I have to honor my own oath that I gave to the club. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by one of our dear sisters.